It's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, March the 14th. The House Criminal Justice Subcommittee is now in session. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Representatives Campbell, here. Davis, here. Gillespie, here. Hardaway, here. Howell, here. Halsey, here. Johnson, Lamberth, Moody, here. Russell, here. Sherrill, here. Towns, Chairman Doggett.
Present.
Chairman Doggett, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Members, do we have any personal orders before we begin today? Representative Moody.
I have two members of our West Tennessee Drug Task Force in the audience. You can stand or wave, but proud of the work you do and thankful for you and glad to have you here.
Anyone else? We will go now to our, Sergeant of Arms, Mr. Tyler Muniz, who is back with us this week for our weekly Words of Wisdom.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for missing last week. Today's Words of Wisdom are coming to you from a Lady Vols legend, Miss Pat Summit. Success is a project that is always under construction. Have a great day.
Thank you. All right, members, we've got a very lengthy calendar, so we will go through and take care of some housekeeping first. Item number 19, House Bill 472 by Representative Crawford is going to be off notice. Item number 27, House Bill 1128 by Representative Gant will be off notice. Let's go to item number 1, House Bill 1029 by Representative Littleton. You are recognized. There are 2 amendments. Which one would you like to proceed with?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to proceed with 4849, please. It does rewrite the bill.
You are recognized on the amendment. Do you wish to explain the amendment or attach it and move forward?
It does make the bill.
Okay. Members, let's go ahead and take a vote on the amendment to attach. All those in favor of Amendment Code 4849 on the House Bill 1029, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You adopt. We are on House Bill 1029 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here today to present House Bill 1029 on behalf of Speaker Sexton, and thank you for putting the amendment on. This legislation came after recommendations from the Ad Hoc Committee on Juvenile Justice last summer. Some crimes committed by juveniles are so heinous that they should be treated the same as adult crimes. The purpose of this legislation is to hold violent juveniles accountable for their actions to promote public safety. This legislation requires that certain offenses on adult criminal court instead of juvenile court will determine whether a case be tried in the juvenile court or if the matter should be tried in adult criminal court. So they'll be sent to criminal court or adult court, and that judge will make the decision if they keep it there or if they send it to juvenile court. Those offenses include if the juvenile less than 14 years of age at the time of the alleged conduct and the child was charged with first-degree murder, second-degree murder, or attempted first or second-degree murder. If the juvenile was 14 years of age but less than 17 years of age at the time of the alleged conduct and charged with these offenses, which are first-degree murder, second-degree murder, rape, aggravated rape, rape of a child, aggravated rape of a child, aggravated sexual battery when the victim is less than 13 years of age, aggravated robbery, especially aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, kidnapping, aggravated kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, commission of an act of terrorism, carjacking, or attempt to commit any of such offenses. If the juvenile was 16 years of age or more at the time of the alleged conduct and charged with robbery or attempt to commit robbery or any offense that is committed with a deadly weapon, if the juvenile was 17 years of age at the time of the alleged conduct. The adult criminal court will make the decision whether or not the juvenile is to be tried as an adult or if they should be transferred to juvenile court, not a juvenile judge as is the current law. The child should be treated as an adult if the criminal court finds probable cause to believe that the child should be tried as an adult if the criminal court finds probable cause to believe the child committed the delinquent act as alleged. The child is not committed to any institution for developmental disabilities or mental disabilities. The interest of the community requires that the child be put under legal restraint or discipline. The judge should also consider, among other things, whether the offense was against a person or property with a greater weight in favor of a disposition as if the child were an adult, if the offense were against a person, whether the offense was committed in an aggressive and premeditated manner, whether the child's conduct would be a criminal gang offense if committed by an adult, and whether the child's history demonstrates that the child is or has been a victim of human trafficking. The District Attorney General shall not seek, nor shall any child tried in any adult criminal court receive a mandatory sentence of death or imprisonment for the life without possibility of parole. So some crimes are committed by juveniles are too heinous that they should be treated in adult court, or they have treated as adult crimes. Holding juveniles accountable for these actions is the same way as adults may serve as a deterrent to others and ensure that justice is served. That I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Representative Gillespie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and sponsor. Thank you. And Speaker, thank you for carrying this legislation. I say this every time, and I hate to say it again, but where I live, we have a serious juvenile crime problem, and this is a great step in the right direction, and this will save people's lives. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you.
All right, members, we do have folks here that are wanting to testify, and so we are going to, without objection, we're going to go out of session. First on our list, and what I'll do is, for the sake of time, I'm going to call up a couple at a time here. There's chairs here, you can sit down. You'll go one at a time, obviously. State your name, who you represent. You'll have 3 minutes for comments, and then members will be able to come up after, or members will have questions for you after that. First up, we'll have Thomas Snow and Centoya Brown, please. Thomas Snow? No? Ms. Brown, it's all you. There'll be a button there that looks like a mouth, someone talking. You'll push that, it'll light up red. You'll have 3 minutes. Introduce yourself for the record. You'll have 3 minutes for comments, and then you'll be available for questions. Looks like a talking.
Am I on now?
There you go.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right, well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and share my story with you guys. I'm here for 2 reasons. One, because I was actually a juvenile who was transferred to be tried as an adult. I was convicted as an adult and sentenced, and also because I work for a nonprofit that I founded after being released by Governor Bill Haslam, where I actually work with juveniles who are facing transfer, who have been transferred, and who have been blessed to have a second opportunity by not being transferred. I wanted to share my experience going through that process in the juvenile court and in the adult court. In juvenile court, the judges there, they are trained to deal with young people who are really struggling. They come before them after making a decision in response to several decisions that have been made for them. These are kids who don't have the same standing that many of us do when we're coming up. They have some difficult circumstances to navigate, and they really don't have the positive supports they need to help them develop the tools to navigate them as all of us would. So I was one of those kids. I was transferred to be tried as an adult, where I was removed from the juvenile justice center and sent to an adult jail. And I had to spend 2 years in solitary confinement because whenever a juvenile is sent to an adult facility, they have to be kept away, sight and sound, from all of the adults. The only option that the sheriffs really have is to place them in solitary confinement. So for 23 hours a day, I was kept in a cell, and most days the only sunlight I saw was through a little window in a wall, and the only human interaction I had was from a guard who was bringing me my food tray. I lost my mind probably about 5 or 6 times, couldn't really participate in my defense. Because I just wasn't there mentally. There are grown men and seasoned war veterans who can't even spend a week in solitary confinement without losing it, and juveniles who are transferred to be tried as an adult have to spend years under those conditions. It would take me months just to learn how to have simple conversations with people because my social skills were just non-existent at that point. My experience in the adult system was completely different than the juvenile court. The adult system, criminal court judges are trained to think about elements of a crime, whether they're present, and if they are present, what punishment is fitting for that crime. So they have these standards. There's no real consideration about rehabilitation because that's not the purpose of the adult criminal justice system, and that's unfortunate. But through my work with JFAM, I've seen that these young people, no matter what it is that they've done, they have this incredible potential to just be productive citizens. I hope that I'm an example of that. Governor Haslam allowed the Lord to really speak to his heart and give me a second chance, and I haven't looked back. I've completely committed my life to working with these young people. I have actually 3 young people who were set to be transferred and tried as an adult, but got a second chance. They got out. They're doing amazing. They have scholarships. A couple have already gone to college, and they're really intent on working with me to develop solutions to eradicate juvenile delinquency. And so they work with me on my council, where we go into facilities, I go into facilities, to work with groups inside and talk about how they can make different choices. A lot of these kids don't understand the choices that they have, right? They don't understand when they get into these situations, they just react. And so I try to show them other options that they have. I try to help push that process along to that prefrontal cortex development, right, to
Ms.
even the
Brown?
playing field.
I'm sorry, your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, well, I thank you. I just pray that you make the right decision here. Just allow God to speak to your heart. The thought of this bill passing literally keeps me up at night. So at the very least, I pray that you send it to study so that I can share with you more that I couldn't necessarily say in 3 minutes. So thank you, Chairman Doggett.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Members, do we have questions for our guests? Representative Hardaway. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Ms. Brown.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. Without your firsthand testimony, I don't think we would be able to effectively, myself and those who think like me, to communicate with the rest of my colleagues just what a travesty it is to throw away the potential that young folks like you hold, the science that you were about to speak to, where the frontal lobe, the prefrontal, the cortex is not fully developed until you're 25-ish. Can you comment on that?
I can. So I think that a lot of times we put it into this perspective of, well, you know, my young child knows right from wrong. And when I was a child, I knew right from wrong, right? I knew what would get me in trouble, but that's not really the issue. The issue is when you get into these circumstances, a lot of these kids are growing up in environments where they're put into circumstances that no child should, no child with a healthy upbringing, and their mind is not really trained to navigate that. So oftentimes they act off impulse from, you know, their amygdala. That's an amygdalic response. This is all science. It's not something I just kind of looked up on YouTube or anything. And so they're not really operating as an adult would. So that's why there's different levels of culpability. When it comes to adults, even the Supreme Court has held that they can be held to a higher level of culpability because they have that. They are capable of thinking through the consequences. They are capable of facing a situation, pausing, reflecting, even avoiding being put in certain situations. But for young people, it's not the case. So that's why it's a bit more complex than just knowing right from wrong, because in that moment when it happens, that's not what you're thinking. In my own situation, it wasn't a matter of right or wrong. I just felt that I had to survive in that moment, and that's what you would consider an amygdalic response. It stems from your amygdala, not your prefrontal cortex. So there is a lot of science involved, plenty of research about it. And again, if you all would like to take this to a study, I would be more than happy to come forward and share what my experience was, to share some of the science. I think there's some other people maybe more qualified than I am to speak on that science. And I would personally even reach out to them and ask them to come and speak with you guys.
Thank you. And you made reference to how you were handled physically in the adult criminal system, in that facility, that it's not built for young folks who are not fully, who aren't a part of the adult criminal justice system.
Right.
The youngest folks in the criminal justice system that's built for adults aren't getting what they need. The further you go down the line, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, and younger, the further away you get from progress, and the more likely you are to place these young folks in a situation where they will regress. Can you speak to whether you had progress or regress when you were placed in the adult criminal justice facility?
So I would definitely say regress. But like I'll say, I think that I'm an exception just because God, he always planted that seed in me where I was determined to make something of my time there. I was determined to push past and to educate myself, which is what I had to do, because when you're housed in an adult facility, not only do you have to be in solitary confinement because they're just not equipped. They're packed enough as it is with the adults who are there. They're not equipped to have a separate area where you can have the same liberties and the same opportunities as the adults who are housed there. So you don't get the lobby time or the phone time or the free time outside of your cell. You have to stay in that cell 23 hours a day. You don't have classes. They're made to cater to adults who maybe just need a few credits or something like that and can get a high set. So you're not getting like the rigorous academic materials that you would get if you were in school, or even if you were in the Department of Children's Services or the juvenile court. So I actually had my attorney at the time who would bring me stuff to kind of supplement so I could train myself and teach myself so that I could obtain my GED. But yeah, it's definitely regressive. You don't really get treatment. So you don't have access to the counselors, the social workers. You have access to none of that because it's not designed for that. If we're honest, when we think of adults who commit crimes, we think of putting them places where, we can keep society safe, we can keep them locked away. That's all it's meant for. When we think of the juvenile justice system is designed to remove the taint of criminality. So it recognizes that these are children who are vulnerable and who are susceptible to the influences of older people. And so the juvenile court uses its resources to kind of remove that and set them on the right path. So they're completely different in terms of the way that they operate. So one child who's kept in the juvenile system can have opportunities to progress. They can have an opportunity to be transformed and retrained and become a benefit to society. But a child who is placed in an adult system is pretty much just set on a downhill path.
So if we summed it up, the adult criminal justice system is designed, is styled, is set up for retribution.
Absolutely.
The juvenile justice system is supposed to be about rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. It's that simple. And the science that we have available to us, used by the juvenile justice system to develop the programs and the facilities in order to rehabilitate, our children is really what's at stake today. So I thank you for the work that you've done. I couldn't think of a better spokesperson. I remember your case well. The Tennessee Black Caucus worked on it, and I'm proud to say we did the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This might have been answered, but quick clarification. So that was what my question was going to be. Typically in adult facilities, there is no school, where in juvenile facilities you have school. So you were saying that there was a little bit of something offered, but your attorney brought you school work.
She did. So in the adult system, you have what's called the TABE, which is the Tennessee Adult Basic Education. And then you have HISET, which is a high school equivalency. And for most adults, that's pretty much all they need. But you don't learn the basic things that you would. And it's definitely not to the same standard as, you know, if you were going to go to our great public schools here. So yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, so I guess the assumption is with adults, they've been through that school. This is just kind of revisiting, reviewing, and practicing, where for you haven't learned those skills yet because you weren't there. And so you need someone who's going to offer you teaching those skills, because you certainly, it's pretty tough to teach yourself Algebra 2 or something like that. So.
Well, yeah. And so the only education you have, so if you're there, you're in solitary confinement, and maybe once a week or once every other week, when the teacher can get away from her class with the adults, she'll come around to segregation and she'll have packets printed out, which is the work. And so you get the packet, but I mean, she honestly doesn't have enough time to sit there with you and work through everything, or teach you the stuff that's in it. So you're kind of on your own.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Holsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for being here. I rejoice with you that the Lord has done a marvelous work in your life, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a question for you. After you went through the system the way you did and the end result that came out of it, had you gone into the juvenile system, I don't know if the outcome would be the same. And the only reason I say that is from my representative friend from Shelby County down there, I think they had 6,000 serious violent crimes committed by juveniles. 600 got referred to adult court. The problem they're having, from what I understand, in other places in this state, is that they're starting in the juvenile justice system, they get released and commit crime again. That's all I'm asking you to probably is to postulate on, had you gone to the juvenile route, do you think the outcome would have been the same with you?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So when I was in juvenile and I had gone through Department of Children's Services, it was a complete mess. And I don't really want to speculate on why it was that way, but we weren't really getting a lot of the services that are available now. Maybe it's because we've advanced a little bit in our understanding about what's effective. I know now, especially now that Director Quinn has taken over, I'm more optimistic about the quality of the services that'll be provided. But at that time, they weren't really there. And I think that we should really invest more in what's being done on that end, because of the programs that are available and that have been put into place, that we've seen that they're effective, right? I have seen just through my work with the girls, with Epic Girl, through my own foundation, we work on very limited resources, very little support, but we've seen progress. We've seen an effect. So there's something there where we can actually prevent it. I don't want us to keep having to figure out, well, what do we do after something has happened? I want it to stop happening. You know, that's what God has really convicted me of, because I can never change what happened between me and that family that I harmed. I can never undo that. But if I can prevent it from happening to other families, that is really what's going to keep people safe. That's what's going to save people's lives. And so we can go on and think about, well, let's just be harsher and harsher, but that's not going to fix the problem. That we need to fix that problem. So we need to make sure that the services are better. And so that with the time that jurisdiction in the juvenile court is active something can be done there. Transformation can happen there. I know there was talk about extending the jurisdiction, and I think, that's a beautiful idea. Give them more time to work with kids. Give them intensive services. If you have someone that's charged with a serious crime, don't just release them at 18 or 19. Hold them there longer. Give them access to that rehabilitation and those services, and then assess, well, does more need to be done in this case? Or can they be given a second chance?
Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
That's all we have for testimony, so we're going to go back into session. Representative Littleton, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things. I am very proud of the woman that she has become. She spoke very well, and she's very educated, and I do appreciate that. And we are definitely working on rehabilitation. And we studied the JJ, the juvenile justice system, last summer, and we realized. You want to say something? And we realized how big of a problem it is. And I have some statistics here that I want to read to you. Just last month, the Shelby County DA had 41 petitions against juveniles, and only 3 were granted. So in 2022, the juvenile delinquent complaints involving repeat offenders, the first ones were 2507. And the second offenders were 520, all the way down to the 10th offenders. The ones that offended 10 times was 123. So we're doing something wrong. We're not getting to the point. We're not rehabilitating them. And we have to remember the crimes that these are. Let me go back to my notes for a second. These are not just little simple crimes. They're taking people's lives. They're raping women, raping men.
You cut your microphone off.
Sorry.
There you go.
Do I need to start over? Did y'all hear all that?
Start all from the beginning, please.
No. Could I read the whole bill, the 10-page one?
Absolutely. No, continue
Okay.
on.
So these are the crimes: first-degree murder, second-degree murder, rape, aggravated rape, rape of a child, aggravated rape of a child, aggravated sexual battery, when the victim is less than 13 years of age, aggravated robbery, especially aggravated robbery, aggravated burglary, kidnapping, aggravated kidnapping, especially aggravated kidnapping, commission of an act of terrorism, carjacking, or attempt to commit any of these offenses. So we're not talking about just going out and having a little fun or beating someone up. We're talking about murder, and we're talking about rape. Rape of children, rape of adults, rape of everyone. So these are, we want to rehabilitate them, but so far that's not happening. We're just failing somewhere. But I do believe that we're working on prevention, and I do believe that we can make some progress in that, but so far we're not doing too well with our teenagers. So I have some more statistics. In 2021, delinquent charges, there were 4,696 charges, and only 1,348 were actually charged with anything. So in 22, this is in Shelby County, and it seems to be that's where the worst cases are. I think it's more gang-related and those type things. There were 6,120, and only 1,787 of them were actually charged. So we're just failing somewhere down the line. We're just trying to make it a safer place for Shelby County. I know that the representative there had some real sorrow things in Memphis this year that happened. So those are the things we're trying to prevent.
Thank you. Chairman Halsey?
Thank you, Chairman. I just had a couple of questions, sponsor. I spoke to some criminal court judges this past Friday when we were out of here, and they said that they don't have access to DCS records like the juvenile system does, and they were kind of saying they have no way of knowing a history. I don't know if you have a way, or there is a way to fix that. And the second thing is the mention of facilities, the lack of them, or a place to put juveniles that are tried as adult. As Ms. Brown said, you can't house a juvenile in an adult facility unless you can seal them off from it. And most of the time I think we're having quite a bit of trouble finding places like that are suitable and that would work. Is there anything in the plans to accommodate that?
There are some plans, and two, we are planning on having DCS release the records to the criminal court. And I wanted to speak on the school too. The school, their classes will carry on as they do in detention centers. And what was the other question? We are looking for facilities. We've got some ideas in mind of what we might do.
Any follow-up, Chairman? Thank you. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of my big concerns coming from, we have excellent juvenile court judges in Knoxville, and they are absolutely, without question, the best people to hear these juveniles' cases and to make decisions about transferring to adult court. There's no question in anybody's mind, certainly in my county, that that's not the best way to go. As a matter of fact, last year, I think they transferred over 3 cases to adult court. So if they were to do that, to do what this bill suggests, they would have more than 270 cases that the circuit judges are going to have to hear. Circuit judges are already backlogged initially, and then because of COVID and those things. And so this is going to put a huge burden on the courts to get through all of those cases. And I think that we just know that the juvenile judge, who these are the types of kids and cases they deal with all the time, are best to make that decision. And I just have a serious problem when we're doing that. And we're being told that there are going to be schools, but we also were told oftentimes there are a lot of programs in prisons that we're just not seeing there in actuality. And so going from a juvenile detention facility where they're able to have a school to potentially maybe something, and then do all, like jails or prisons have the ability to be out of sight and out of hearing of the rest of the population. Is there a fiscal note on this bill? Because I would imagine this would be quite costly.
I haven't even looked at the fiscal note. Pardon? It's not significant.
You're saying there's going to be schools in these places now, and there's no fiscal note?
Well, those will be probably added later and come with the fiscal note. If there's schools.
So we're going to pass a bill where we don't have a plan yet of where these kids young people will be educated.
Yes. No, we have to give them an education. I mean,
Correct.
The law says we have to give them an education.
But there's no plan in this bill for how that's going to happen.
Just that there will be education available for them.
That is now non-existent.
It'll be like the juvenile delinquent centers. There will be school teachers inside.
And there's no fiscal note.
That could have been without the amendment.
I will say that in your dashboard, under the research notes, there is an amendment code with the fiscal note. Yes, ma'am. Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill. I have a question for you. You quoted statistics as it relates to Shelby County. What other areas did we look at statistically?
These are the only ones I have today.
Well, what I'd like to see is more data. And I'd like to see more data. And also, I'd like to see data as it relates to other cities. You stated that the rehabilitation is not working, and I'm sure it's not in some areas. I'd also like to see where it might be working, if it's working anywhere in the country, what people are doing in the juvenile justice system. But a random sampling is going to, for me, include more than Shelby County. Okay, you got other counties that I am privy to that have, challenges, certain things going on. I'd like to see that data. You have other large counties like, obviously, Davidson, you got Chattanooga, you got Knox, and some of the rural as well. So I'd like to see more data and look at the ratios and the percentages and so forth. But most importantly, where it's working, if it's working anywhere in the country. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did the Shelby County data because that's where the most crime is, the murders, the horrendous crime that was committed in Memphis not too long ago. So that's where our data come from.
But I still want it spread out. I want to see what else we're looking at. Give me a broader picture versus a little snapshot.
We'll work on that.
Thank you, Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I call the question.
Question's been called. Any objection? So we're now voting on previous question. All those in favor of previous question say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
The ayes prevail. We're now voting on House Bill 1029 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
The ayes prevail. If you wish to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
For item number 2, I'm going to hand the
Mr.
gavel
Chairman.
off to the esteemed Chairman Holsey.
Chairman Halsey.
Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. And just a request to my colleagues, the sponsors cited Memphis and Shelby County any number of times, cited data, cited concern, and yet the committee decided that Memphis and Shelby County, the parts that I represent, didn't deserve to have debate, didn't deserve to have deliberative inquiry of the sponsor. That's wrong. That is wrong. And I would ask that those members who are in similar situations, and you have been, when your part of the state has been in peril from bills that are coming from someone not from your part of the state, that you've stood and fought for your folk. I deserve the right to fight for my constituents with the same fervor, the same type of zeal that you do. So I would ask for more respect from my colleagues when it comes to bills, especially that speak to Shelby County. And there's nothing more consequential for Shelby County children, juveniles, youth, and young adults than this bill that y'all just sent out of here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. All right, we're going to House Bill number 2 by Chairman Doggett, House Bill 1030. And by the way, all of those of you folks who got to eat lunch today, congratulations. I am very, very glad for you. Chair Lady Moody said I didn't need to. I was so big, my bathtub has stretch marks, so thank you. All right, House Bill 1030. Chairman, you recognized. Motion on second. Have a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is an amendment code 3628.
Motion is second on Amendment 3028. We're voting to accept the amendment and put it on the bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This legislation makes changes to the current repeat violent offender laws, which we feel is vital for holding repeat violent offenders accountable for their actions while also protecting victims and the public. Simply, this legislation states that for repeat violent offenders, if they receive 3 strikes for committing violent offenses, they will be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility for parole. There are various strike categories. We have the 1.5 strikes, the 1, the half, and the quarter. There is a lengthy list of violent offenses that would qualify under this, but without reading through the entire list, I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I think we have some folks here to speak on this bill. A Ben Rabin and a Matthew Charles. Are you folks here today? Okay, please come forward. We'll go out of session and hear what you have to say. If you'll just take a seat at the desk and make sure your mic is on. And please introduce yourself so for the record we know who you are. I don't know if you're on there or not. The light's on.
Okay. It's red now.
There you go.
Thank you, Chairman Husband and committee members. My name is Matthew Charles. I'm a resident of Nashville, Tennessee, and the State of Tennessee Director for FAM. FAM opposes House Bill 1030. Had this bill been in effect when I was sentenced, I would still be in for life instead of serving 22 years of a 30-year sentence, even though justice had already been served through my conviction and I was clearly rehabilitated. I believe House Bill 1030 allows a person to remain incarcerated for longer than necessary to ensure justice. A person can also be one drug offense. We're talking about violent offenses, and there are some offenses that are nonviolent listed. A person can be one drug offense away from receiving a life sentence. The bill doesn't take into accountability the years from the first, second, or third offense. It also doesn't take into mitigating factors why a person ended up in the situation as they did. I grew up with childhood trauma. Because of that, I made a whole lot of decisions that were wrong. I ended up incarcerated for some of these crimes that are listed. And had I been sentenced in the state of Tennessee with this bill in effect, I would still be in prison, as opposed to being out, being able to be a voice for those that are incarcerated, speaking to governors and legislators around the country. One thing President Trump said unto me when I first met him, and oftentimes when he introduced me, was that they wanted you to do 10 more years behind bars. But he stated it derisively, meaning it was unbelievable and purely punitive. And since then, I have also known that there are a lot of people, I'm not an anomaly, there's a lot of people like me, and this bill will throw those people away. There are several bills that were passed last year that allow somebody to commit some of these violent felonies to serve 85% or 100% of their sentence. If we don't feel that them serving their entire sentence is enough, and we have to just throw these people away from life, we're literally saying Tennessee is the worst state in the United States because we have to have the harshest laws in the country to make a point. My sister Centoya Brown spoke about the need for rehabilitation. House Bill 1030 eliminates any form of rehabilitation from the state's perspective toward that offender. It also allows that person to no longer be connected to his family and his community. And therefore, FAM speaks against House Bill 1030 because we don't feel that it's necessary. It does not, the data suggests that it does not deter crime, and it doesn't work. But it is costly because people will be serving the rest of their life in prison. We will have to build more jails and staff them, and we're already having staffing problems with the 14 prisons that we have here in the state. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Charles. Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Charles? Yes, Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Charles, for being here. You are an expert. You've been there and you've recovered, and now you're trying to make things better for those who are in your shoes, so to speak, or in your old shoes. Could you expound a little on what the difference is in holding someone for an extended period of time as opposed to holding someone and rehabbing them for an extended period of time, with the goal being the creating a productive citizen as opposed to a set amount of time?
Okay. The goal of rehabilitation says that this individual is definitely not incorrigible. It allows that person to be able to go behind bars, realize he has made a mistake, take accountability for the mistake he has made, and try to make amends. During the course of rehabilitation, the state is able to document the different things that this person does while they're incarcerated to see what progress is being made. Whenever we use incarceration in the form of incapacitation only, that person goes in one way, and if he's fortunate enough to get out, with this bill he wouldn't, but if he's fortunate enough to get out, he's returned the same way. So in other words, as I stated, the state takes its hands off taking part in the rehabilitation of offender when it makes a person do 100% of their time or give them a life sentence. That person should not be held accountable. I understand that mistakes are made, and I know that as you continue to repeat those mistakes, the judge should be able to utilize the discretion to give you more time, and he does. He takes all those factors already into consideration when he imposes the sentence from the start. But to have a person given a life sentence, sent in at whatever age he may be, he could have been a wayward juvenile, sentenced in an adult court. And now he catches another offense that adds that 1.5 that he needs to have those 3 strikes, and he's serving life. As I stated a little bit earlier, it doesn't distinguish the time frame between whether that offense was 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years ago. But that person goes in, the prison is no longer safer because this person feels that he has nothing to live for, and he's not going to be a rule follower, he's going to be a rule violator, and it's not a suitable place for his fellow prisoners or the staff. So to me, that makes all the difference as well.
So, and these are my words, can I assume that we have individuals who have reached the point of rehab that we want, and because they can't get out, could possibly regress and become as bad or worse than the person they were going in?
I agree. Hope deferred is always a terrible thing. The fact that a person goes in, he realizes he's made a mistake, he's being taken away from his family and community, and he wants to change. But as he continues to serve that sentence, he realizes that the efforts that they're making, it seems like everybody still is reminding him of who he used to be. And he can regress because when situations come up, he don't know how to critically think. In other words, he just responds to his atmosphere, and his atmosphere is saying you don't matter. So yes, I believe that a person who does have a mindset to return to their family, because people change for a variety of reasons. I changed because I ended up finding Christ in the county jail, but people also age out of crime. So people change for a variety of reasons. But a person that I believe that doesn't have, I'm just going to say it, a strong faith in God, they're dependent upon themselves, and once they try and try so hard for a certain period of time to no avail, they will regress.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, committee colleagues, we're about to make a choice here on whether we're going to warehouse our offenders or whether we're going to try to rehab our offenders and make sure that we return them when they do return to our communities, that we return them in better form, in better shape, emotionally, intellectually, et cetera, than they were when they went in. And just warehousing folk with no real benchmark that we're going to respect that will determine when you're going to release them versus having them in the system with programs that are going to help them to get better. And once we measure where they are, and they measure at a point to where they can be the type of citizens that we want in the community, that they're released. So I'm saying that we've got a lot of disjointed bills and laws that seem to be coming down in a deluge and avalanche, and we're going to regret it. All of this, Mr. Chairman, reminds me of the three strikes era, and we're still paying the price for that. Thank you.
Representative
Thank you,
Townsend.
Mr. Charles.
Thank you.
Representative Townsend.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again. Thank you also, Mr. Charles, for your testimony. I want you to tell me from your perspective what it is that you think, obviously because everybody's tired of crime and certain things, and especially when it's repeat offenders and things of that nature, or whatever the crime may be to a certain degree, a higher level. From your expertise and how you live and been able to navigate, what do you suggest? What do you think would be a better alternative?
I think a better alternative would be investing in prevention. I'd also believe that if we, like we was talking about juveniles earlier, if we can reach children at a younger age, we need to go into some of these facilities where they're housed at and see when the youngest person, what their age is, and then start addressing people the age before they get to that age. I believe there need to be communities involved, more families involved. We know that a lot of these children are from single-parent families, but the community, I believe that the churches play a role as well, need to come alongside and be able to help these people and be able to show them that just going out, join a gang so that you can have a brother or a sister or somebody that cares about you is not the way, because they truly don't care about you. But I believe that the money should be in prevention and reaching the youth before they get to be in the juvenile or adult system.
So when you say invest, give me some ideas for young people. What kind of program, if you can be a little bit more specific about investing in the young or in the system. Tell me what you've seen that has worked, or if you have that, you may not, and specifically investing, targeting them with what kinds of programs?
I would say that, well, I can't speak on most wayward youth. I was a wayward individual myself for a long period of time. I was done that way because of my family surroundings. My father was a very physically and verbally abusive person. As I stated in many of my testimonies that a lot of people have heard, I believe I was bounced off of every wall in the house and outside of the house. So I believe that the school system has to be involved, the counselors. I also believe that communities need to approach these children at a younger age and just don't have basketball camps or taking them out on, camping and fishing trips, but have something daily that they can come and do that would be educational for them, like a lab where they can learn computer skills, that they can learn that they can be a little bit more than just a basketball player or a rapper.
So do you think conflict resolution type skills would be good? Somebody teach young folk how to deal with their conflicts?
I would definitely say so because of the video games and a lot of things that we see on TV. The conflict resolution that is being utilized by some of the children doesn't exist. They do what they've seen on the video games and what they've seen on the TVs. And as you stated yourself several weeks ago, when I was hearing one of the hearing, a lot of parents are actually afraid of their children because the children have grown up with other people that have been violent toward their loved ones or what they've seen on television. So a lot of parents, especially single-parent families, are afraid of their children. So the community should come alongside and also be a family to that family.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for your testimony. It helps for me to hear examples of what would fall under this bill, and hearing that it could be a very early crime that was committed, and then much later you could have a nonviolent crime added on that would put you into this category. And I think that's something that we really have to be cautious of, without a doubt. I think that's very helpful to hear. Do you feel like what do you feel was the most important thing for you and for your rehabilitation? Can you choose one thing or not? You may not be able to.
Oh, I can directly choose one thing. I would say the fact that I grew up believing that I was alone and didn't believe that God existed, and then going into the county jail, and somebody gifting me a Bible along with some other things that they had, such as toiletries and food items, and I ended up reading that Bible, and God moved on my heart and made me make the best decision of my life, to start believing and clinging on to somebody I didn't even believe existed. So that's what made the change in my life.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for our guest? Well, Mr. Charles, you're an articulate man, and I appreciate your testimony. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, we're back in session. Questions for the sponsor of the bill? Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Charles, thank you for your testimony. Obviously, there are folks that can be rehabilitated, but both from my time as an assistant district attorney and just in private practice, unfortunately, there is a small percentage of the population that continues to commit violent crime after violent crime after violent crime. It is a small percentage of those that are coming through court. But I'm sick and tired of it. I don't know about y'all, but I think the people of this state are sick and tired of not being safe in their own communities. 345 murders in Memphis year before last. High 200s last year. Progress is not having 200-plus murders in one city in the state of Tennessee. But it's not just Memphis. I'm absolutely tired of us all focusing just on one city, too. It's Mountain City to Memphis. You have pockets of violent crime throughout this state, no matter where it is, no matter what community, where you have a few bad apples that are genuinely all the violent crime in that community centralizes around those folks. The recidivism rate for those that are incarcerated is dang near a 0%. If you continue to commit violent crime in this state, I hope this bill sends the message loud and strong, yes, we will warehouse you. Yes, we will incarcerate you. You will not hurt another Tennessean in this state, not on our watch. If you don't like that, don't commit the crime. That's all I have to say, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'm glad that the leader made the point that this isn't a solitary problem for Memphis. This is a national problem. And I really get sick and tired of hearing Memphis held out as the only place that crime is committed in the great state of Tennessee. But let's talk about warehousing. When you have individuals who were broken when they went in, and the only thing you do is break them even more. You heard Ms. Brown testify, for instance, that she was kept in solitary confinement. She would go 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Why? Because the programs that we have are not working. That's what's not working. We don't even have a way to effectively measure the rehabilitation programs that we have in place. Who's taking responsibility for those programs in the Department of Corrections that are supposed to rehab, that are supposed to make men and women better than they are when they go in? That's where we need to be concentrating our efforts. If we're just going to, and I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, if we're only going to warehouse men and women, then we're only going to be safe as long as they're in the warehouse. When they come out, if we haven't done our job and been smart on crime, then we're going to have worse citizens, better criminals than before they went in. It ain't that complicated. So we can talk about how safe we are while they're warehoused, but we need to be concerned about is who's going to hit the streets when the time is up, and the time will be up. Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we need to pretend like these folks who have committed these crimes are not going to get sentences for those crimes. They are. But just going to life in prison, why not give them the full sentence for the crime that they committed? Why are we creating this basically a 3 strikes bill instead of giving the penalties for the crime? It almost sounds like some think that we're setting someone free. They get another crime, they get convicted, they will serve the full sentence. And that's going to be clear. So I just don't understand why we have to go to this idea of literally throwing people away, which makes our prisons less safe for the people who work there as well as other inmates, because people have no incentive to do programs and improve themselves. And I just think that this is a big mistake, and that we should sentence the folks for the crimes that they commit without a policy like this that literally puts them in prison for life. And that's it. Thanks.
Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, thank you again. Sponsor of the bill, Mr. Chairman, this would impact, what's the age range on the person that's incarcerated that this bill will impact?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This would be adults.
So that's 18, I would imagine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Now, could it be considered as 3 drug offenses, or is it 3 misdemeanors? What is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. These are felony offenses. Now, in regards to the drugs, it was mentioned earlier, someone would have to be convicted twice in order to receive a half strike, a 0.5 points, if you will, on strikes.
Now, 0.5, Mr. Chairman, what is that? Extrapolate that for me, please. You have to pardon my voice, but what is a 0.5?
Thank you. There's, it's a half a point. There's, as the strike matrix is, if you will, is broke down, it's 1.5 is one category, and there's a list of offenses that fit into that section. You have the 1 point section where there's a list of offenses there. You have the half that has a list, and also the quarter points that have a list of offenses as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in other words, you got sounded like 4 different categories, and you would have to total 3 points in order to be considered as 3 strikes, or would it be 2.5 points or 4 half points, or what? How does it add up?
Thank you. It is a combination thereof. When you get to 3 points, then that's where this bill
would kick in.
Kicks in, yes, sir.
Okay. I think we have to go back to school and get that mathematics course again. Mr. Chairman, everybody on this panel, everybody in this room, everybody's sick of crime. We all are sick of crime. We are. And I would venture to say that even a criminal, if that person is criminalized, is sick of it too. It's something that I've heard for a long time as a kid, youngster, how we were going to deal with the crime in our community. It was always, be as harsh as we possibly can, which in some cases is very good. However, what I've learned is this, is that in many, many, many cases in our community, crime is coming out of the homes of how we have not raised our children. It's a deal what I see more and more that, and they're younger and younger, but it's how sometimes we have taken discipline out of the schools, out of the homes, out of everywhere. And we know the mind is not developed until a certain age, and kids think they can do anything and get away with it, and there's no reprisal. We were disciplined properly, I think, as we come along. So in order to really get at the core of it, we're going to have to do these types of things. Crime and punishment always go together, but there's some other things we have to do as well in order to really try to touch and neuter this thing at the root. And there are a combination of things. These kinds of bills many times make us feel good, but if we track these bills, track them along the way, and see what the net gain is, that's where the truth is told, whether or not we get any net gains. We have the death penalty on the books across the country. It hadn't deterred any crime. It doesn't deter murder. I'm not saying you shouldn't have to have it, because under certain situation, hey, you would be forced to kill somebody trying to protect your family. But it has not deterred murder, and it's on the books. It's been on the books for a long time. I share the same frustration that everybody else shares. I know people that things have happened to, and everybody's sick of it. There's something that's happened in our culture, and I'm talking about the American culture now, because I know pockets, it's everywhere. I go to different parts of the country. Years ago it was New York. One while it was D.C. Some other city. It moves around. It seems like it moves around in different parts of the country. We're going to have to, as leaders, reevaluate what's going on, what's really going on in our communities, and how we can really, and the people want us to try to improve this situation, and they deserve that. We need to try to improve it. But we got to do more than make an attempt with doing something we've always done and think that we're going to really net something that's really great for our communities. And like I said, I'm for crime and I'm for punishment, but more than anything, I want to see things improve in our communities. We deserve that. All of us do. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question is really kind of two. Does the DA still have discretion to bring charges or change those charges? And also, do the defendants still have the ability to negotiate a plea deal?
Go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill does not address those issues. That is, currently procedure and how they operate. What we're looking at is when it comes time for the conviction portion of it, then when they are convicted of these crimes that are listed here, this is what happens. So whatever happens with negotiations and things that are made on the front end before you get to the conviction portion, that would be, this bill does not address that.
All right. Any other questions for the sponsor of the bill? If not, we're ready for the question. We're voting on House Bill 1030. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no.
No.
The ayes have it. Bill passes on to full criminal justice.
All right, members, we're going to go to item number 47. Item number 47, House Bill 1002 by Leader Lamberth. Representative Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's an amendment that makes the bill. It's coded 5770.
You are recognized on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this, procedurally, we just give the Attorney General in capital cases the ability and authority to have exclusive jurisdiction over post-conviction or any other collateral attacks on that particular sentence handed down by the jury.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Seeing none, we're now voting to attach Amendment Code 5770 on the House Bill 1002. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You adopt. We're on House Bill 1002 as amended. Any questions for the sponsor? Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Chairman. To my good friend, the sponsor, why are we doing this?
The Attorney General has jurisdiction already over all other appellate matters. Post-conviction is, in essence, just that. It occurs in a trial court, but it is a collateral attack on a sentence that has been handed down by the jury. This just allows for that to be a seamless transition where not only they handle the appellate matters, but the post-conviction matters as well.
Having heard from some of the local folks and defense attorneys who are concerned that the resources are not in the Attorney General's office, the organization, the personnel, the experience in criminal matters of this nature, and that it's going to cost us time, and it might cost us a whole lot more money than we're seeing reflected in the fiscal note. Would you speak to that, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir. So most district attorneys' offices are going to see, one or two capital cases in a career. In your very busy urban areas, they may have more than that. But a lot of district attorneys do a phenomenal job, and they all do a phenomenal job handling those at the trial level. They're very difficult cases on both sides of the aisle. The Attorney General's office has an entire division that just handles capital murder appellate work. So that's who would be handling these. So they are able to do that within their current responsibilities. There are not very many capital cases. This is only the worst of the worst we're talking about here, but this allows the division that's already handling all these capital matters and handles them on a daily basis, and quite frankly frees up our local district attorneys to do what they do best, which is handle each single case that's coming through, try those cases to a conviction, and then once something, especially capital cases, is on appeal or for post-conviction, let the Attorney General's office do what they do best, which is handle those appellate matters.
Mr. Chairman, I have more questions, but I'll give it the leader off grid. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you, Leader.
questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're now voting to send House Bill 1002 as amended on the full criminal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes prevail. If you wish to be recorded as a no, please see the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you, members. Let's go to item number 3. House Bill 1242 by Representative Powers. You are recognized. There is an amendment code.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
4449.
4449. And the amendment makes the bill.
You are recognized on the amendment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment deals with a new drug. As we know, a new drug is coming out all the time and hitting the streets and killing our kids. This one's called xylazine. It's also referred to as Tranq. It's a non-opioid veterinary tranquilizer used on horses and cattle, and it's been connected to several drug overdoses in the country and in Tennessee. Xylazine is central nervous system depression that can cause drowsiness and amnesia and slow breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure to dangerously low levels. It's usually used to cut fentanyl and meth. The only problem with xylazine, or the biggest problem, is that when they recommend an overdose of like Narcan has no effect on this drug. This is a veterinary drug, so if somebody is taking this drug and it's been cut with fentanyl or whatever, Narcan has no effect and they most likely will die. This bill will pass, if passed, will make xylazine a Schedule II drug. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will be glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the sponsor on the amendment? Representative Davis.
Chairman Powers, I want to say thank you very much for bringing this bill. We all know the dangers that a lot of these drugs have, and especially with regard to how this is mixing with fentanyl, because like you said, it's a non-opioid drug, so Narcan doesn't affect it because of those opioid receptors. So thank you very much for bringing this forward. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the amendment? Seeing none, we're now voting to attach Amendment 4449 on the House Bill 1242. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You adopt. We're on House Bill 1242 as amended. Any questions for the sponsor, Representative Towns?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you for the bill as well. I've never heard of this stuff.
I had to.
What the hell is it?
And to be honest with, I'm sorry. To be honest with you, I've never heard of it either. And thank you, Representative Davis, for bringing it to me. Because we were looking at doing some other things too, but this came up on the screen, and what it's used for. Most of the times, veterinarians will use it because I've talked to several that they'll just use it to put like a horse tranquilizer to put them to sleep, to do surgery on them, or even on cattle. But they're using it now to cut other drugs with, and Narcan doesn't have any effect on it. It was used a lot in some of the Caribbean countries. They're using it, just taking it straight, and it causes a high. It's also called the zombie drug, but it is just hitting the market now, and we're seeing more and more people die. We had 8 overdose deaths in Tennessee last year.
Well, Mr. Chairman, now, obviously, there again, this makes me think about the old angel dust. I remember that stuff 100 years ago, okay? Does it have anything to do with that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's kind of like...
yeah. Right, and what it is though, most of the time it's used to be cutting to be cutting another drug with it, and just to cut like fentanyl with it most of the time.
And Mr. Chairman, there's no antidote for it right now.
Right. Yeah, Narcan has no effect on it, and if it's cut with Narcan, they're most likely not going to make it.
And we suppose that it's going to be coming from where? What country? Because we get all this mess out of Mexico, China, various places. Where do we think this is going to come from? Or will it be manufactured in our own state or country?
Same thing. And one thing we found too is it's coming through Mexico and a lot of other places. It's also coming from the Caribbeans, because we found that Puerto Rico, that it's one of the #1 drugs down there, and they're taking it, and they've had a lot of deaths in Puerto Rico with it.
Horrible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Johnson.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm hearing that's lidocaine, that it's the same thing as same drug as lidocaine.
And I'm not really sure. I had not heard that. Had not heard lidocaine mentioned with that drug.
Because I know there's lidocaine creams that we use for various things. It's not according to this, it's the same. But I was just curious about that. So you're not aware of that.
No, I had not heard that in connection with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Lamberth.
Move previous question.
Question been called. Any objection? Seeing none, we're voting to send House Bill 1242 as amended to full criminal. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes prevail. Move on to full criminal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee.
Item number 4, House Bill 1248 by Representative Powers.
And yes, thank you. And this one has an amendment too, amendment number 3806.
You have a motion and a second. You recognize Amendment Code 3806. You're recognized on the amendment.
All right, thank you. Just a note for the records too, I've gone completely digital now. It's kind of a trendsetter for the legislature, if y'all want to follow me on that. So this is House Bill 1248 is the Elder Abuse Financial Hotline Bill with TBI. What it is, we have $500 million. So this is only the reported amount of elderly financial abuse reported in Tennessee every year. A lot of people think that number is much higher because family members will not turn in other family members, so a lot of it goes unreported. This will create a service where the financial service provider will provide information to the aid in the investigation of suspected elder financial exploitation. The need for this bill is to help prevent scams of financial exploitation for people that are 65 or older and vulnerable adults. It will provide one position for each DA's office. That's 32 total to investigate these crimes. It will also create a dedicated office within TBI to create an elder financial reporting system and aid in the investigation of suspected activity. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Representative Towns.
Sounds like a good bill, especially because our senior citizens, a lot of time, they don't practice Smith & Wesson. They being taken advantage of.
They are.
But are the institution, the banking institution, going to be required to work with them with this bill, with TBI, with the banking institution? If they see something suspicious and TBI comes to them or will they be allowed to, under the Privacy Act, to interact with the TBI people?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, and that's one of the main reasons for this, because that's where we're seeing a whole lot of it when people are going in to make a transaction and the red flag goes up, but we really don't have anything to do with it right now. Now, this way, the financial institution will be able to call TBI and direct them immediately to local authorities or wherever they need to be, and it'll also have they'll also have that information in their computer that, this is a type of scam or whatever that's running right now. So let me just tell you briefly one idea where this came out of. They did this in Oak Ridge, kind of a pilot program. A detective was literally on speed dial with the local banks and credit unions, and in a 10-month period, because of her intervention, she saved the depositors over $3.5 million. And so the TBI, we've been working with Director Roush and to pull together a group to make this concept work, and with the DA's office, and hopefully we're going to be able to prevent people from being financially exploited in Tennessee.
Mr. Chairman, here again, I think it's absolutely excellent, but just to be clear, there's no negative blowback on the financial institutions. They won't be able to be sued, or they're protected with our state law, and they can initiate, is what you said. I think you said that. Okay.
Okay. Well, as many lawyers say, and I know there's some up here, anybody can be sued for anything, but will they be liable? And that's what we're trying to protect. We're working with the banking industry too. We've even had them come and talk to us about this bill. And as far as I know, unless there's somebody here that is against on the banking industry, the banking industry is going along with this bill, and they think it's a good program too.
Well, finally, Mr. Chairman, as I said, I think it's an excellent idea. If we find that they have liability, we just need to quickly try to get there and tweak it so they don't, because this needs to be done. It certainly needs to be done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sponsor, thank you for bringing this. I used to work for a bank back in Memphis. It's across the state. Well, First Tennessee. We'll just, yeah. But I had I'm not going to go into detail, but I had an exact situation when I was a financial service representative, where over a period of maybe half a year, this took place, and I contacted Adult Protective Services. I did everything, corporate security. My hands were completely tied. That individual ended up dying under very suspicious circumstances, and it's something that weighs heavily on me still to this day, and I only wish that I had this resource then, and I can't help but think that person may still be alive. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Leader Lambert.
Move previous question.
Question's been called on the amendment. We're now voting on Amendment Code 3806 to attach on the House Bill 1248. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You adopt. We're on House Bill 1248 as amended. Any questions for the sponsor? Thank you very much. Question's been called. We're voting to send House Bill 1248 on the full criminal. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You move on to full criminal.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee.
Let's see here. Let's go to item number 7, House Bill 248 by Representative McCalman. You're recognized. There are 2 amendments here. Which one, or both, or how do you wish to proceed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Both of them do not rewrite the bill, but I do need to have both of them attached. Sorry, I'm good with 3602, sir.
3602. Second, all right. We're now, let's attach the bill, attach the amendment. Voting to attach Amendment Code 3602 on the House Bill 248. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes prevail. You adopt. We're now on House Bill 248 as amended. You recognize.
Thank you, committee. Members, as amended, this bill makes a number of changes to how crimes involving strangulations are dealt with in Tennessee. In a nutshell, if you are convicted of domestic violence in this state, this bill will make it a mandatory 30-day sentence at minimum. If in the process of that you strangle somebody to the point of unconsciousness, the DA will then be able to pursue attempted murder, which right now they do not have that ability. If the victim of said strangulation was pregnant at the time of the strangulation, botched that word up there a little bit. If the victim was pregnant at the time of strangulation, it will be considered a Class B instead of a Class C misdemeanor. Felony.
Thank you. Is this your first bill in front of this committee?
It is my first bill in front of this committee, sir.
It's unfortunate we don't have more time.
I'm grateful for that, sir.
So, any questions for the sponsor on this bill? Representative Johnson.
Yeah, just a quick question that was brought to my attention. I understand the importance of the bill and all of that. There's some concern in the language about attempted strangulation, and with some attorneys that feel like attempted strangulation could create a problem with fact finders due to whatever the altercation was, and especially with juries. So has that been a concern at all?
How I'm understanding it, Representative, is it's going to fall under domestic violence. So attempted strangulation or strangulation, it's still going to be considered domestic violence, which would enact a 30-day minimum. If it is, I hate to say, a successful strangulation, that's when the attempted homicide would fall into play.
And I'll add to that. I'm sorry. Attempted strangulation is current law right now. So, Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, would y'all help me explain this to me? How do you verify attempted strangulation? Because there's no marks on the person's neck and it can get into a he said, she said kind of conversation. I can lie and say, well, he tried to strangle me. And, domestic violence is a thing that's really real. But people get emotional and they lie on each other. So how do you attempt to strangle somebody and get charged for it? You can't prove it. Not attempted strangulation. Strangulation is different.
Yes, sir.
But I just attempted to strangle you, and I'm way over here.
Oh, that would be an impressive feat from over there, sir. As far as that would still, it's, and I'm not a law enforcement expert, so I would not be able to speak to that, and may not be able to speak to that. But from my understanding, this is to the chairman's point, the attempted strangulation, which is on the books right now. It would still fall under domestic violence and be charged accordingly.
I'll look for it. I'm just not getting it in my head. I'm all about the bill, but I'm just not getting the attempted part in my head. And we need to make sure we get it right because these are serious stuff when it comes to domestic violence, and et cetera. But it's already on the books. We may have to tweak that. But attempted strangulation, that concerns me. But if you go straight strangulation, yeah, I understand that. And I know how to look for that, how to prosecute for that, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions for the sponsor? Seeing none, we're voting now to send House Bill 248 as amended on the full criminal. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, the ayes prevail. You move on to full criminal.
Thank you, members and chairman.
I want to apologize to everyone that has been here waiting patiently all day, but we will roll all remaining bills onto next week's calendar. Next week, we'll be working off of our final calendar. So we are adjourned.